Hi, I'm Coach Robb, and at the time of this recording, I've been a human performance coach going on 40 years. When we talk about the subject of an injury, if you look it up on Google and you look at it from a textbook standpoint, they will tell you that an acute injury is something that's happened within the last 24 to 48 hours. A chronic injury is something that's lingered for more than a year. I want to explain to you how both an injury can be in both wheelhouses. What I mean by that is, think about you wake up tomorrow morning and all of a sudden you've got a new pain. Is that because it's been a residual occurrence that just kind of slowly creeped up on you? Or was it because it was an impact injury? Was there something that you've done that you can remember that tweaked it and you have this very sharp pain? Historically, an acute injury is going to be warm to the touch. It's going to be red. There's going to be some very immediate signs. But remember, you just woke up you just woke up tomorrow morning and you had this epiphany that you're like, oh wow, that muscle, that joint hurts all of a sudden. Let me explain a couple of the things that could be causing an integration of both an acute and a chronic injury. No matter what sport of choice you're in, the best way to avoid an injury both on the acute state as well as a chronic injury is to keep your workload changed up. And what I mean by that is every sport has its own sport-specific range of motion. You have your own sport-specific strength, flexibility ratios. You have your sport-specific speed and endurance ratios. No matter what sport you're doing, you have to remember that muscles love to be challenged in different planes. When I say a plane, what I'm referring to is the human body has a left and a right. It has above and below the belly button, it has the front side and the back side of the body. Your sport of choice is obviously going to break all three of those planes. The beautiful part is when you do something other than your sport-specific exercise, you do put the muscle under load. It's going to get stronger. When you move different directions, you're going to improve your range of motion. For this first discussion point about an overuse injury, an injury associated with it being whether it's acute or chronic, I just gave it away, could it possibly be an overuse injury? Yes, when you're working on a sport-specific skill and drill, there is going to be muscle memory and repetition. You can't replace it. But like anything, there is a point of diminishing returns, so you want to make sure that you keep your strength, your endurance, your cardio, flexibility. You want to keep all of these changed up as much as possible. When we get a little bit closer to the competitive season, we need to be a little bit more, the percentage needs to be a higher percentage of sport specificity. But for those other seasons, preseason, pre-competitive, keep it changed up. That'll help you avoid an overuse injury. Another area that could be causing both an acute and a chronic injury would be muscular imbalance. When you're looking at the human body, keep in mind that you have a left and a right, a front and a back, above and below the belly button. Think about it as 3 dimensions of movement. Whenever we're working with our clients, we make sure that we are striving for muscle symmetry. I need to make sure that your left quad is as big as your right quad. I need to make sure that your left bicep is as strong as your right bicep. And notice I integrated size and strength. When we talk about muscular imbalance, it's not only just the size, but it's also the power, and it's to be complemented with power needs to be muscular endurance. No pun intended, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So what we see happening, and this sounds like a big physiological term and it's really not, it's what we refer to as a compensatory adjustment. What I mean by that is if your right leg is weaker than your left leg, the right leg has to work harder. Now, the way that we suggest that you try to identify it is take body measurements. Grab a tape measure and literally measure the belly of each muscle. We can get a little bit deeper into the weeds depending on if you've got a physiologist locally that you can work with. Make sure that you've got a strength balance between the quadriceps and the hamstrings. Now, it's a little bit beyond the scope of this conversation today, but when we're talking about how can an injury be both acute and be a chronic pain, it could possibly be because of muscular imbalances. So you want to make sure that you get those corrected as quickly as possible. When you're dealing with an acute injury that's integrated with a chronic injury, another source of problems could stem from not eating enough food. I want you to visualize literally from the inside of your body going out, go all the way down to the bone level. On top of the bones, let's look at tendons and ligaments. Ligaments attach bone to bone, tendons attach muscles to bones. Think about the muscle itself that sits on top. Now think about all of those from an integrity standpoint. The food that you eat, the quality and the quantity of it, complemented with your quality and quantity of sleep, is going to increase the integrity of your bones, tendons, ligaments, and muscles. If you're not, especially in today's day and age where there's a multitude of different suggestions that are out there, cutting calories, fasting for long periods of time, completely eliminating food groups, I would encourage you to not do that. It's beyond the scope of this video, but unfortunately, when you're running calorically restricted, you're restricting the building blocks from the inside out. What could be causing an acute injury integrated against a chronic injury? We have found that insufficient food intake, calorie intake, tends to be one of the bigger reasons why people are constantly injured. When you're looking at an acute injury and a chronic injury, I would encourage you to take a look at your daily hydration levels. When you step on the scale in the morning, that's going to help you understand inflammation and swelling. And then when you take your weight in the evening, that's going to help you determine whether or not you're properly hydrated. Your goal is to be 3 to 5 pounds heavier every night over your morning weigh-in weight. When you're looking at proper hydration, it would be what you need to consume during the day, plus what you're losing in the form of sweat. Now, the reason why this is attached to both acute and chronic injuries is because when a muscle is dehydrated, it cannot slide and glide. I want you to visualize you have your muscles, you have fascia, you have skin, and when all those different layers are properly hydrated, they slide and glide over each other, which creates less heat. It sounds like a double negative. Think about it. If a muscle's dehydrated, it can't contract the way it's supposed to. The fascia in the skin and all the connective tissue around it, as it becomes more and more dehydrated, it's like two dry sponges rubbing up against each other, which unfortunately creates friction. I'd rather you look at it on the positive side, but because we're on the subject of an injury, whether it's acute and or chronic, being properly hydrated could eliminate some of the symptoms that are associated with an acute pain. And if it happens for an extended period of time, it can help offset the chronic side of an injury. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Dealing with injuries is never fun, no pun intended, right? Nobody likes to be in pain. But I wanted you to see that there's some definitive things that could be contributing to both an acute and an ongoing chronic problem. So I hope you'll try to apply these things as quickly as possible. When you're going through this process, if you happen to run into any situations, if you have a question in any shape, form, or size, I'd like you to do me a favor and send me an email, contact@coachrobb.com. The reason why it's so important is every day here on YouTube, we're answering your questions. The amount of people who are subscribing to the channel is gone up exponentially, and we can't thank you enough. So if you haven't liked, subscribed, and turned on the notifications, I would encourage you to do so, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.